What happened to the resolution that you made at the start of the year? Now, I'm not trying to come for you, but in January, you were excited about the goals that you set out for the year. Where is that excitement now? For a lot of people, laziness is not the thing that is preventing them from achieving their goals. What is preventing them is the fact that there is no plan in place. There is no functioning system. So the real question is, how do we pursue our goals? And how do we do it in such a way that we aren't neglecting important aspects of our lives? We are going to find out in this video. What's happening, my people? My name is Joel, and on this channel, my goal is to create content that inspires, educates, and edifies young people to live a more purposeful life. Let's get straight into the video. Before I list out the things that you need to do to achieve your goals this year, I just want to start off by saying this. God's sovereignty does not negate your personal responsibility. Let me put it in more simple terms. God being God does not cancel your responsibilities. Because sometimes we as Christians, we like talking about the will of God, let God's will be done. And then we use failure as some sort of reason for not doing what we should do. In fact, we use God's plan as an excuse to not continue to be persistent in the things that we said we were going to commit to. But I want to clear this up very quickly. You setting goals does not mean you lack faith. And just because you are failing does not mean that God is against you. Yes, God knows the beginning from the end. He knows you inside and out. He formed you in the womb. But that doesn't negate the fact that you can still work. That doesn't mean that you can't put plans in place. In fact, it is proven multiple times in the Bible that God actually works with people who have motion. So believing that God is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, His plan, His will is the ultimate and final. It doesn't mean you just sit around idly and not do anything and just hope that things magically come into place. It means that you set out your plans, you do the things that you said that you're going to do, but then you also submit things to God. So again, just because God is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Most High, the sovereign God, does not mean that you will sit still, that you don't do anything and just hope that things magically fall into place. It means that you have motion. You should still move, but while you're moving, you commit your plans to God. You submit to Him. Now that that's cleared out of the way, let me start with point 1. Clarity before activity. Get very clear about the goals that you want to achieve and then bring it to God. Become very specific, because anybody can just wake up and say, yes, I want to be rich. Okay, duh, everybody wants to be rich. How you're going to be rich? That's where you need to get the clarity on. Are you going to start your business? Are you going to become an entrepreneur? Are you going to work full time? How? What's the plan? Where's the motion going to go? A good example of this was David expressing his desire to build a temple for God, because previously God was dwelling in the tabernacle, but David was like, yo, I want there to be a temple for God. He showed God his plans and he brought it to God. David had clarity. Now, the reason why we should bring it to God is because He is the one that gives us grace. He is the one that actually helps us determine whether or not what we do is actually worth doing. So coming back to David expressed his desire to build the temple, but God told him that he couldn't do it because of the amount of blood he shed in war. Now imagine if David had ignored God's commands and went to go build the temple anyway. God would not have dwelt in that temple because it would have been built out of disobedience, and David would have wasted resources and time. So what ended up happening was David submitted his plans to God. God told him, listen, you can't do it because of the blood in your hands, but your son will do it. So David provided the resources for Solomon to build the temple. Solomon did end up getting more resources, but David did his part to help Solomon build that temple. So the goal of building the temple was still accomplished, but it was accomplished in a way that aligned with the will of God. So again, coming back to yourself, get clear and specific with the goal that you want to achieve. Maybe you want to be a 6-figure brand owner, and that's great and all, but maybe God's view of this is that you need to be a person that is able to manage all this money first before you get this money. So instead of you receiving all that 6 figures this year. God will direct you to resources, to mentors, to people that will help you become more financially responsible so that it is aligned with God's plan and you still end up achieving the goal anyway. So again, clarity before activity. We don't tell ourselves, oh, I'm not gonna plan because God is in control. We don't tell ourselves that. What we do tell ourselves is, I'm going to plan in alignment with the will of God. I'm going to surrender the process and the outcome to God, because 10 times out of 10, God's way is better than your way. The second point I want to mention is that systems beat motivation every single time. Where motivation fails you, systems are gonna carry you. A system can be defined as a set of processes that work together in order to accomplish a common purpose. And 9 times out of 10, the goal that you want to achieve can be broken down into smaller goals, which can then be achieved by systems. The Bible tells us of a story of Moses, how he led the people of Israel out of Egypt, but these guys were having a lot of complaints, a lot of issues, and all these issues was falling on the head of Moses, and Moses was getting kind of stressed because he was dealing with a lot of people at a time. So he received some advice from his father-in-law and told him to appoint certain leaders that fear God and will not take bribes. And that's what Moses did. Moses appointed leaders of 10, of 100, of 1,000, and whenever a set group of people would have a problem, these set group of people will go to one person, and then that one person, if they have a problem, they will go to the person that was directly on top of them, and again and again and again, until if the problem was so big that it couldn't be handled by anybody else, it will then be brought to Moses. That is what we call systems. A system where everybody is heard, a system where leaders have leaders, and a system where the big problems are streamlined to the main authority. So in the same way, whatever goal you want to achieve this year, set up systems for it. If you want to grow spiritually, schedule it. If you want to grow physically, program it. If you want to grow in any other capacity, if you want to achieve a certain goal, block it out in your calendar. Just set up daily systems that will help you work towards your goal. Now, for some people, their mindsets are like, oh, I can't achieve some certain things because I failed before. This is the problem that a lot of young Christians have today. You might have started working towards your goal in January, but then you didn't see the progress that you wanted to see, and then you prayed about it, you kept trying, but you felt like you failed, you fell short, and then ultimately you decided that this wasn't God's will for you to begin with. But here's the truth. Sometimes failure means no. Other times failure means not yet. And other times failure means grow first. Just undergo a bit of growth first. Because the truth of the matter is, God is more concerned about your own character development than your bucket list. So if you've tried something and failed before, accept that reality, but don't over spiritualize it. Analyze it. Was it aligned with the will of God? Have you searched the Bible to back up what you want to do? Were you consistent? Did you build systems? Were you seeking counsel? All these different things you need to factor in. Because at the end of the day, even though you feel like you failed, failure isn't always final. Sometimes failure is just feedback. So, to wrap everything up in a bow, plan, pray, act, adjust, repeat. Plan, pray, act, adjust, repeat that cycle again and again and again and again and again and again. Plan, pray, act, adjust, and repeat, and you will see progress. I hope this video helped you in some sort of way, and I hope it's inspired you to start working towards the goals that you said you were going to work towards. Okay? It's been fun. I've been Joel. Peace.